All right, good evening, everybody. It's 7:31 and we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you for the leadership team, or part of the leadership team, for being here. First item on the agenda is roll call. Dave, are you okay, or Mayor, are you okay to do roll call?
Sure, I can do it. Caravello, Hirsch,
Here.
Jensen, Majewski, Reeves,
Here.
Lucky, absent so far, Schumacher. All right, we have a quorum, and I believe it was certified and verified and everything else.
And it's in compliance with open meetings law. All right. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 10th, 2023, just a mere week ago. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Right, approves. Do we have a second? Phil, with a second. Does anybody have any changes, edits, grammatical things? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the CIP budget overview. I think, Dave, this is you.
Correct. And I apologize, I forgot to, at the top, put version 5, not version 4, but it is version 5. Some slight change in numbers. We had a few departments moving some things around between years. But in total right now, total request for 24 for debt issue is $17 million, which is a lot of money. I'm not saying it isn't. And then, Mayor, if you go to the next page, please. I was asked to work up a few numbers for where we're going to be at, and so I draw your attention to the two lines in yellow. First one is an estimate of the general obligation debt as a percentage of equalized value. I used the 3-year average for equalized value increase going forward. But using those same numbers, the highest that we're getting is 2.95% in 28. So we're definitely going to be below our 4% goal, let alone the 5% for statutes. And then I was asked to do an estimate of where the mill rate's going to be. And I had to do some kind of down and dirty estimates for the debt levy. I just assumed everything would be a 15-year debt. Some of it's going to be 10, some of it's going to be 20. I took the average, and I just plugged in 7% for everything. There's not a calculator out there to do the calculations like Ellers has, so I just set it up like a monthly mortgage with monthly payments the same. It's going to get you in the ballpark. So with that, 23, we had a mill rate of 7.01. 24, I'm estimating 6.49 or 48, and then you can see the others there. So again, math tells you that if we can only go up for net new construction of the 3-year average at 1.91%, and with equalized value going up an average of 12.56%, math is going to tell you the mill rate is going to drop every year. It's just going to happen. Now, obviously, there's a lot of assumptions there, but I'm going to open up the floor to you folks to see if anyone has any questions.
Okay, excuse my ignorance. So if the mill rate goes down, the amount of taxes that we collect that's spread out all over everything else then goes down too, right? Does that affect our bottom, our...
Well, the mill rate going down means that we are going to charge less per $1,000, but the dollar value of taxes is going up. But the allocation with everybody is going down because you've got more people that you're averaging everything out to. So it's, the two are related, but they're not. You know, it's the devil's in the details, and you got to play with the numbers. One person can say taxes are going down, the mill rate went down. Yeah, we're taxing less, but the dollar value would go up. So it depends on which side of the coin you want to look at.
Okay.
One thing we do know is our expenses are going up.
Yes.
Right, and that's where I'm concerned.
Any other questions anybody has?
And I think the other thing is at least next year, I think we're optimistic our net new construction may be higher than it is this year. And
Yeah, I think next year is going to be a record year. We've got a lot of new construction coming online right now. Okay, the next item that I have in the packet is just a brief report on impact fees that the Parks Department collects. And working with Dan, you know, I said, you know, we're looking at approximately $2.4 million in expenditures in 24 and 25 that he wanted to have paid by impact fees. So he gave me the breakdown by park, where all the monies are coming from, and so we're looking at roughly 4.2. So he's being conservative on those estimates of revenue. So at this point, I do not have a problem supporting, you know, assuming that you folks want to do the construction details, but I think we don't have to worry about having to use cash for these things. And based upon the conversations that the mayor and I have had, we're going to change the accounting on the impact fees, which will give Dan a better idea of which parks are being are paying the money, for instance. So that'll give us a better idea. It's like, okay, we're not seeing the development happening as fast at Park X, but it is coming in for Park Y, so we're going to do the work on Park Y this year. So again, just a very high-level conversation, but I kind of wanted to make sure that we had available funds.
Yeah, you might recall, we collect the impact fees typically when building permits are pulled. There has been some exceptions over the year, but usually we anticipate it'll be when they pull the permits. And, you know, the market can change pretty quickly. So, you know, I think Dan and David done their best to kind of project it out and like you said, be conservative about it. There's just things that are beyond our control.
Correct. Any questions at all on that topic? Okay, the next item kind of segues into the Public Works requested budget. And Public Works, once again, is asking for the city welcome, the digital city welcome signs in their budget. And I don't know which committee to ask anymore because it keeps on getting bounced around, but I had drafted Resolution 4023 asking for confirmation as to whether the 22 budget included funding for the city welcome signs with ARPA funds or not. The documentation isn't clear, but that's why I'm asking for some clarification on that. So I've brought this to Finance, I've brought this to the Common Council, and I brought this to Committee of Whole. I'd really like an answer on that question, and I don't know which committee to bring it to anymore.
Well, it should have come to the committee of the whole, so you are at the right one for this one, because ARPA funds come through this.
This isn't committee of the whole, this is CIP.
Well, it is. It's CIP, but it's, oh, that's true, it isn't. Yeah. God, I'm sorry. It's a long day.
Committee of the whole had it on their agenda and did not take any action, did not have any discussion. So I'm just asking, please tell me who to take it to so I can get a response.
At this point, we haven't borrowed the money or anything, right?
Well, in a nutshell, the 22 budget included the capital project and it said grant revenue. There was no grant revenue in 22 other than ARPA. So everything I've seen says we have budgeted ARPA money for it. But I've been told at the committee of the whole, no, we didn't. So that's where I need clarification.
Where are our notes?
Well, I don't think we voted on it to approve it. I think it was just left. So, and I'm trying to remember who's on the committee, who's on the ARPA committee. Is that, that's the whole
everybody, all
council,
the
right?
whole
That's-
council.
Committee of the whole is the ARPA committee.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't have a strong feeling. I'd be in favor of having it approved, but I don't know what we need to, you know, put it on as a council agenda.
Well, put it this way, his request is going to be talked about tonight, so somebody has to deal with it. I don't know who, but I'd really like an answer to the question.
Yeah, I know we discussed it. I just,
Yeah, I don't know if we ever took action on it.
We didn't.
Really, I guess the first question is this something that is desired? And if it is, then how are you going to pay for it? Do you want to add it into the CIP, or do you want to wait until April when the committee of the whole goes through the rest of the ARPA requests?
Lisa?
So if I remember right,
But if you do that, and you decide that, then you're set.
You mean with the ARPA?
Yes,
No.
so,
Make sure you use the mic. Your red light's not on. I can see
God,
from
you're so
here.
picky. No, put it in the CIP. We vote on it, we decide on it here. If we get ARPA funds, we decide for ARPA funds on it, then you have that much less that you have to deal with in the CIP. It reverts back to other projects. Or you just don't use it.
Lisa?
so the way I remember it, we didn't, I think at the time Brett did not have I think we were looking for the actual pictures and description, which I think then we got an email on it.
Okay, so-
But I don't think we actually met.
Here's the scenario that night. You're correct, Brett made a presentation. He was asked
right
to
here.
provide the information.
Yeah,
The next item on the agenda was R4023, and nothing was done on that. Brett did provide the next night, but that committee's not meeting till April.
right.
Yes, props.
I guess, Brett, what is the total cost again? Because I know you,
Yeah.
one time you had
What-
two different varieties, and then you
Yep.
gave a presentation on this.
Yeah, so it all depends on if we want to do digital components for all of them, or a combination of digital and standalone signs. So right now, our ask is for $110,000. As for the sign, any property acquisition, also electrical conduit to the site. So that's the current ask. I think we did the first presentation in 2021. And then I'm not sure there was any action that was taken. However, in 2022, it showed up in the capital budget in our spreadsheets. And so that was the question I had as well, is this actually funded or not? And that's when the questions were, I don't know. So we didn't do anything with it because we weren't sure the money was actually there. I could have just done it.
Oh, use your mic. Oh,
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, like Dave said, it said grant funds for the project, and there was no clarification. We got no other grant funds for the project besides utilizing or looking to utilize ARPA. So you can make an assumption that was ARPA, but I don't think it was ever truly acted on.
No, because I know what we did was we solicited everything from the different departments, and then the community came in, and then the committee of the whole met, and they, they decided to, fund a number of different things, and then save a chunk of it, because we don't know what the future holds.
You're 1 year off. This would have been when you met in '21 to establish the '22 budget.
I don't think we made any decisions back in 2021, because we were still gathering all the
I mean,
information.
That's why we're really looking for clarification.
I'm saying I don't think we made any decisions at that time, except for utilities and Gary
And I
Becker.
absolutely agree with you, but the documentation shows that capital project was in there with grant fund. There was no grant fund except for ARPA. So that's why when I drafted Resolution 40, I basically said, we're clarifying it's not ARPA funds. Then I know how to do the report to the US Treasury. We know whether it's included in the budget or not. I'm really just asking for clarification.
No, I'm trying to clarify it. Go ahead, Lisa.
So we saw an update at our last Public Works meeting an hour ago, and I think that Brett's going to share that in his presentation. If we agree with that it's a good idea, my recommendation would be that we expedite it, put it in CIP, and just be done with it. So that's what I would recommend.
Because one option too is if you do like it and want to move forward with it, that's in the CIP budget, but then you decide how you want to pay for it, whether it's ARPA or
And
capital dollars.
that's the question that I
later on.
have. Just putting it into CIP doesn't say the funding source.
My
I need a
recommendation would be to fund it through CIP because we're not planning to need for
CIP
ARPA.
borrow, not CIP ARPA.
Correct, yeah, CIP borrow.
Okay, and if you give me that clarification, that's enough.
That's my recommendation. I can't speak for the group, but I think just to get
That's
it
where I
off
was
the
leaning.
table.
Is that where you were leaning? All in my-
And ultimately, that'll be part of the package that goes to council, right?
Correct.
Because this group's gonna do a recommendation at the end of the third meeting on everything, and if that's included, then the council will vote on everything.
Yeah. And sorry for the bongle. What that was. I have no idea. Because I know we didn't vote on it, so, anyway. Brett, we'll get to you. First, I think we're at the city clerk goes first for their presentation. Dave, are you handling that?
Yeah, Candy had a family situation, so she will not be able to be here tonight to go over it. She did give me her PowerPoint presentation. I'll put it up on the screen for everybody. I'm not going to read it word for word. But basically, we are right at the limit where we probably need more Badger books, one more Badger book for each polling location, which is based upon population and the state recommendations. As our population grows, we will definitely hit it. The concern that we have is with the presidential election coming in '24. We think there's going to be just a few more people voting than we've had the last year or so. And that's a understatement by any means. So at this point, just because we're hitting the threshold where we're going to be needing those machines soon, we thought to give ourselves the backup at the different facilities, this would be the time to actually purchase them. Candy gave me this PowerPoint late. I can certainly email it out to everybody, but that is a kind of real high overview of it. I've got to remind departments, stop using white font. It makes it really hard for people to read. So I will email it out to everybody, but she's got information in here for Fitchburg, Verona, and McFarland. We are looking at, does she have, yeah, she's got the figure of 8224, so that's the total for all 4 Badger Book items. The packet does have the invoice or the quote detail too. So I'll try and answer any questions anybody might have on this.
Does everyone know what the Badger Book is? The Badger Book is like an iPad that replaced the book. So when you came in, you give them your name and your address twice, you know, and you sign the book or whatever. This replaces that, and it really helps to streamline the process. And then you have an electronic record of it. And then also, if somebody comes in to register to vote, it's pretty efficient to do it on the Badger Book. And then last year, I think we added additional machines so we could process the early votes, you know, on election day separate than the people coming through the line, to really try to speed up the process so when the polls are closing, we can get our results done quicker. So the Badger books would be in addition to the ones we currently had. I think last year was the first year they used them, and they did extensive training with the poll workers, and I got really good feedback from everybody on how well they worked.
Was there any paper backup just in case there's like a hack or a virus, where's John, that gets into the Badger books or anything that?
I'm not aware of any paper documents. It's a database kept by the state. So we wouldn't have it per se. I don't know if you're familiar with anything.
And I don't think they're online when you use them, other than, you know, you're not voting through them or anything like that. I remember going through at the senior center, we talked about them, and there was a few questions about the security, and you know, there's no way a vote can get in there. It's just basically replaces the paper books, and works out really well.
Did they ever print out at the end, you know, just to keep a record in case it gets deleted? You know, I'm just trying to figure out.
I understand what you're saying. It's been too long since when I was in the clerk's office, Badger books didn't exist, so I don't know if Candy prints something out afterwards. We can certainly ask her about that.
No, I'm just out of curiosity, because I'm sure they kept the other books after each election where everybody signed and kind of validated whether you voted or not.
Yeah, and those are kept the same time period as the ballots. So depending upon the election, it might be 18 months, it might be 4 years.
Okay. All right, that's what I'm just making sure that those Badger books keep, there's something.
I can ask that question of Candy and ask her to update this committee on that topic.
That'd be great. It's more curiosity, just to make sure that our elections are, you know, there's no ever questions, you know, because we use Badger books as opposed to the old paper method.
There isn't a line in here that mentions.
Okay. I don't know.
It says $0 amount, zeros. So
Yeah, and
it says quantity 4.
I honestly don't know what the thermal printer is. If it actually, I would hope that the thermal printer would not be used to print the entire database, you know, of everything, because that's a thick document. Without looking, I would guess the thermal printer prints out the tally numbers at the end or some sort of summary document. Anything else I can try and answer for you folks?
Anybody else have any questions? No? All right. Moving on. Finance Department. That would be you, Dave.
That would be me. I added one thing for the 25 budget, so this is kind of just informational only for you. A month or two ago, the IT department let me know of some issues that we have with BSNA software on our server and Microsoft. There's two different BSNA requires something, and Microsoft says we don't have that on our servers anymore. And so, speaking with John Montgomery, they do have workarounds for it, but we're not at the best security level for that. So, with that, we started looking into what the price would be to purchase the new software. I got a quote at today's prices. I bumped it up by about 5% each year to get it into 25. So you're looking at approximately $130,000 is my estimate. Like I said, this is informational only for you. I'm not looking to bond for it at all for budget year 24, but I just kind of wanted to give you a heads up that it is coming.
So you think it's 125 and two?
Yeah, right now you're looking at
90?
about 125 right now, so that's why I estimated the 130 or whatever number I put into the budget. I can tell that real quick here. 130, yes. So this is basically it's the fourth generation from what we bought, so there's some definitely updates. The users will be quite familiar with everything there, but it is a upgrade that we've got to do a lot of planning for and background work. You've got to set up the all the security and the accounts and everything. So the department that's going to have the brunt of it for the upgrade would be my finance department, and I don't think we're going to have time in 24 to do it, but that's why I'm looking at it in 25.
Okay. All right.
Any questions on that topic?
Seeing none, I get to move on to the police department. The dynamic duo is up.
Yeah, it's so big you need two.
Yeah. With me, of course, is Lieutenant Hill. We're going to present a kind of a presentation where we both have some ideas on what we're trying to identify. And we also have Director Montgomery for a portion of our program that will involve more the IT side of computers and cameras, which we both kind of somewhat struggle with storage space. And John is here to provide that. So just wanted to start with, as you can see, we outlined several things. We identified needs. We tried to stay away from wants. A couple of the items on there, particularly the new body cameras and squad cameras, along with the policy program, are things we equate to being responsible liability-wise, and we'll offer our explanation as we move along. A couple of the items are reoccurring. You'll see we're after a couple squads again, including a new canine squad. Each year, for as long as I remember, we've requested 2 new vehicles each year. And then finally, a new item is exploring a new public safety facility. So first, we'd just like to start with the body cameras. Lieutenant Hill, if you will.
Sure. You can jump to the next slide right away. I don't know if I have to...
Is your mic on?
It's glowing red.
Okay.
I don't know if I have to spend too much time explaining the relevance of body and squad camera in today's day and age. We've all seen the videos, it's on the news. It's a huge liability to not have them for a police department. There's some bigger agencies that still don't. But our history, as you'll see, in 2013, Stoughton Police Department was the first police department in Dane County to get body cameras, so we were a leader in the technology back then. Unfortunately, we went from leading the race in Dane County to still using the same technology today that we purchased in 2013, so it's quite outdated, antiquated, and honestly doesn't even exist anymore for some of the systems that we have. In 2014, we upgraded our squad cameras to the systems that we're using right now. So our body cameras are 10 years old, squad cameras are 9 years old. Everybody knows how electronics age. That's, you know, a lifetime and then some for any camera as far as quality and things like that. If you want to jump to the next slide. One of the bigger issues we've run into, and the technology's changed, is everything's being sold as a package now. We're using two separate systems. So we've got the Panasonic squad cameras and ViView body cameras. That just creates double the work for the officers. When they go on a call, they're going to have squad camera while they're responding and then body camera while they're there. They've got to tag twice as many videos. For those of us, specifically me, that have to do all the records requests, we got to go into two different systems every time to try to retrieve all the videos. So one simple case, we could have to be going into actually 4 different systems to get the report, the squad camera, the body camera, and then any still photos or things like that. The new system will kind of put all of those together. So if you want to jump to the next slide. And I kind of hit on already, both systems are antiquated, no longer supported. Right now, if one of our squad cameras were to go down, they don't make the models we make anymore. We don't have a contract with anybody. I don't know what we would do to replace it, because everything's being sold as packages now where you outfit a fleet, which is what we're in the end going to be asking to do. Also, as far as the liability side of it, neither of these programs have redaction software, which records requests are going through the roof for us. Any major incident, obviously we're giving the attorneys all the videos, but citizens are wanting them, nosy neighbors are wanting them, things like that. And there's a lot of protected personal information that we're dealing with, whether it's people's driver's license information, their medical information, things like that. As of right now, we're tippy-toeing around this whole redaction issue because we're either not releasing entire videos, which means we're not following the Freedom of Open Records laws, if it's got protected information in there, and obviously a liability for lawsuit either for not releasing or releasing things that we're not supposed to. All of the new systems come with redaction software that makes it much easier to work right with the videos. Another thing, and John can touch on it, but my understanding is the city's going to cloud storage for everything. Right now, all these videos are getting stored on our server. We're eating up server space like crazy. We get our butts chewed based on our retention all the time by them, because we want stuff saved long enough that if the city were to get sued 6 years from now, we still have these videos and can show them what actually happened. To save hours of video every day for 6 years is a lot of server space. All the new systems are cloud-based and, according to the IT department, rather cost-efficient for what we get for the cloud-based pricing. I'd already talked about all of our stuff is outdated and can't be replaced. So, John can talk a little bit too about the squad camera system being a security risk. It's so old that it doesn't work with our new updates. So there's some updates they can't do, or they have to set our computers to operate like their older computers, which creates security risks to get the squad camera software to work, because we're working with 2014 level of software. Panasonic no longer exists. They no longer support our cameras. It's just a mess that way. If you want to jump to the body camera one, ViView again doesn't exist. They were bought out. They have actually one support guy. I found out when I did this slide, nobody could get a hold of anybody, but last week I got a hold of the one person that they have left that does support, and luckily I got an hour window where he could help us. Otherwise, if he's on vacation, we got no support at all. The battery life in our body cams is atrocious. There's officers that they're dying after an hour. All body cameras use the exact same batteries that cell phones use. So if you think about if you still had a cell phone from 2013, what that battery life would be like, that's the body cameras our officers are using. Obviously, we're missing things when they go on a call and the body cameras are shutting off, things like that. We got lucky in that with our body cameras not existing anymore, if we had any problems or with them breaking, the only way to replace them was it last year or 2 years ago, we were able to purchase used quasi-junk body cameras from another agency that had done an upgrade like this, and we're using our same system, so we've got a pile of possibly working, possibly not working that we pull from when one of ours breaks. But that obviously isn't going to continue forever. Some of the neater stuff too with the new body camera and squad cameras all working as a system is if one of them's turned on, both of them are turned on. They communicate back and forth. They save all the videos together in kind of one case file, so it makes them easier to find. Just much easier to work with, easier for the officers to tag, so not as much downtime of having to work through the two systems. In the request, you can read it, but in the end, we're going to ask for a little over $100,000 for update of the cameras, both the body cameras and the squad cameras, and then there's an install cost with that. In being completely honest, I also added towards the bottom, that's all the one-time fee for 2024 through the CIP budget, but then in the operating budget, there's going to be a little over $15,000 every year, which is our cloud storage of all those videos. Again, according to IT, that's pretty cheap. And we have a reoccurring cost anyways, which would be the $50,000 about every 5 years if we were to stay with a similar system and try to store everything in-house, which isn't the model and is also a security risk that way too, I guess. So,
And we did explore 3 vendors, and we settled in on this particular one. It had plenty of features, including what Lieutenant Hill mentioned as redaction software. Sergeant Holper spent time researching, doing some footwork, and visited Fort Atkinson, who had switched to this particular vendor. And we're very happy with it. And over 3 weeks now we've been trying the product as far as the body cameras, and the quality is so much better than what we experience with our own models, and that it's even going to improve more. The salesperson explained like their next generation, which we would be purchasing, is even that much better, that much clearer, picks up audio and video at a higher rate.
we actually looked at DeForest has the same one, Fort Atkinson has the same one, Jefferson County has the same one, Whitewater has the same one. So a lot of similar sized departments, this is what we're going with. There are other options if you guys want to hear more expensive stuff. I can give you quotes that are in the $500,000 range, but we went with the one that would accomplish everything we needed to do at the lowest price point.
So, not a problem with the cameras. I just need clarification. So the reoccurring cost, $1,550 per year, is that in addition to the $50,000 every 5 years?
Yeah, it's like a subscription cost in some, an annual subscription cost.
Yep, that's for the cloud storage of the videos and any other files we put on there. So you're just paying for cloud storage.
So, and Dave's sitting down, so that's not a CIP budget item. Those reoccurring costs, those are yearly budget items, right?
Correct.
I included this in the slide, so just so the committee could fully understand that if you approve this CIP thing, there will be a reoccurring cost for future years, so you don't come back next year and go, what's this $15,000 more you're asking for? And we're like, well, you gave us the cameras, you have to give us the storage that goes with them. So that was more just a knowledge piece for the committee.
But that comes out of your operating budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
No, I just want to be clear and that there's actually both of them. It's not one or the other, it's both of them. All right, thank you.
How about, is there warranty information, or is there a service contract? Or?
That's what the 15.5 is?
There's a 5-year service contract with that. If you look, the initial cost includes what they call a refresh. So somewhere's within that 5 years, we can send back all of the equipment. So the easy way to think of it is if all of a sudden our battery life starts to go down, we can send it back and we'll get all new body cameras somewhere's in that 5-year period. Obviously, we try to make it as far as possible to get the new stuff. And there is warranty on it. I believe it's a 1-year warranty as far as user breakage on the stuff, and then it's a 5-year service contract.
So then you want, if you send them all back, like in 5 years because something was going wrong, and you get all new ones that we don't have to pay for, then that it comes with another service contract, or how does that work?
Nope, that's included in this
This contract.
contract, is you get
Okay.
one refresh of each unit.
Okay.
So some, some might have battery issues after 2 years because the battery just wasn't as good. Some might make it 5. So I don't anticipate sending like everything back all at once and getting all new. It's that each unit can be replaced once in 5 years at no additional cost.
Okay. Lisa?
So I thought I understood, but now I'm confused. So right now, it's about $10,000 a year, and I thought it was going from 10,000 to 15,500, but it's gonna go from 10,000 to 25 per year?
No, no, no.
I think that's what you were asking.
There's an initial cost.
Right.
The approximately $10,000 per year.
Cost, the 15.5
So-
versus the 50.
So right now, it says 50,000 every 5 years for the current storage. So I thought
Correct.
that meant that it's gonna go from 10,000 to 15,500.
Right now, we have the storage
Right.
already on-house. If we continue using in-house storage, that's what IT said it'll cost us approximately, because we'll have to update the servers in our basement to save all this video. And they said, at today's rates, they gave me a very quick estimate, it'll cost about that for the $50,000 to buy new storage, which they feel would fit our needs for about a 5-year period. So every 5 years to keep everything here, it would be that. That's not something we're paying right now. We've got the storage, everything's good on the storage, although we're close to maxing it out.
Still not sure I'm following, but as long as Dave says you got money for it and operational, then I'm not, I'm trying to
I
figure
guess
out what's
it
the
was the same
increase per
question as
year.
like, going forward, we need the 50,000 every 5 years for the internal storage and the
No.
cloud storage.
Nope.
Okay, so the
It-
50,000 goes away, and it's just the 15.5 every year.
Correct.
That's what I was
where
getting
Yeah,
we
at.
were.
my purpose of those points is to show that even though you're going to incur a 15.5 every year going forward, it's not that much different than what you would incur if you stayed with on-site storage versus the clouds.
5,500 a year.
Yes.
Yep.
And they're all estimates, but who knows what the cost of
No, we
a
just didn't
server is
want
going to
it-
be in 5 years.
That was a good question, because I thought, based on your last answer, they were both going forward, and so
No.
that, okay.
No.
Glad you clarified that. Whew. I was thinking, how are you guys gonna get that out of operating? Okay.
Nope. So that's it for the camera part, unless there's other camera questions. Thank God. Oh.
Oh, sorry. Microphone, yes, the glowing red light. Since the support for some of the other hardware, I guess this is a kind of crystal ball question. I'm kind of wondering about longevity of these companies that supply the hardware and the service and stuff. Because if we've got this great deal, it's like, oh, we can get a refresh
Correct.
some certain period of time down the road, but there's nobody to get the refresh from. But we
It's
just
time to
don't
call
know.
it. When we
Yeah.
first purchased the squad cameras from a company named Panasonic, we felt pretty comfortable.
The bigger companies are buying the smaller companies. There's contracts when they buy them about how long they're going to follow contracts, and I don't know.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah. Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, moving on.
Next is one of our reoccurring items, again, a new squad. This one is geared for a K-9 unit. The current K-9 unit is a 2017, which replaced, I believe it was a 2012 Crown Vic. So we're at about a 6-year into the 2017. The squad itself has a large number of hours on it. It spends a lot of time idling. It's our only squad that isn't run 24/7. However, just because of the dog's needs with the Odin inside, it sits in idles. It has a lot of dog-specific items in it, including an alarm and that tracks the temperature inside the squad, as well as a door release in case the dog needs to exit. The idea here would be to purchase a new vehicle. We looked at different models and talked to different handlers in different departments, and we believe that a non-hybrid unit would be best. giving the amount of cool air that needs to be moved through the squad with the dog in it. And, you know, that's like 9 months out of the year. Parked in the sun, a pure gas motor doesn't have any issues with picking up that additional air and keeping it steady. We looked at different like size of kennels within and kind of settled in on an SUV or possibly a pickup truck. The trucks have a larger kennel. The entire back seat is a kennel. The one advantage there would be the dog is totally removed from the squad equipment, where now, like in that SUV on the screen, there's hair everywhere, hair on all the police stuff, hair on the guns. I mean, there's hair everywhere, where with the advantage of having a truck is all the equipment would be in the bed of the truck. I think that would kind of cover most of it. The idea we'd also would replace those systems that I mentioned, the temperature monitoring alarm, and replace it with a new one. Again, those features have been updated. We're dealing with an older system. There's a lot more features on the new ones. These we have experienced a couple issues that outlined on the next slide, where the alarm has gone off, where we've had failures. We had the squad overheat and dump some antifreeze. And of course, with the blessing of Public Works, looking at our total hours and mileage, this vehicle does meet the criteria for a suggested squad replacement. And then I believe the next slide would be, oh, yep.
Does anybody have any questions on this? I'm kind of sad that the hybrid is not a choice, because last year you also didn't replace with hybrids, and you were going in that direction. Now you're going backwards.
Yeah, we've had problems just purchasing vehicles, and hybrids in particular. For last year, we had 2 hybrids ordered, and Ford just canceled the orders, and we were at a scramble, so we had to go, forward with gasoline models. Not knowing that at the time, that's where we went with the Fords for this year. But if you remember, we only took delivery last year of 1 squad, and we have another one on order now that is filling a need from last year.
Right. I know it was the issue. It's just.
Yeah. So that going into the, I'll kind of explain with the next request as well, that maybe we'll have a little more time to wait out if we get a hybrid. And the manufacturers are so non-committal at this point.
I know. I was just chuckling to myself. Went past a Tesla, and they actually have a setting in their Tesla that for dog ambient air. So if you leave and the dog is inside, the windows are up, the car actually keeps the temperature correct. I just thought it was kind of interesting that there is that technology. We just aren't available to us yet, but hopefully in the future for our canine squad, that would be ideal.
The vehicles are made specifically for law enforcement, aren't they?
Yes. And I guess getting back to the squad itself, we thought about repurposing that to suit our civilian service officer who does like dog pickup. So we'd have the kennel already in there. He or she could use it for their other duties, and have the ability to house a dog safely in the old canine kennel. So our thoughts was to keep that and then trade in a different vehicle, which I don't know how deep we want to get into vehicles, but we have an older squad right now that we're using for our CSO.
No, I think that's good. And being on the neighborhood Facebook group, I didn't realize how many dog pickups you guys do.
Right.
And geez,
Yeah,
Glad
we're
you
lucky.
like dogs.
Yeah, and Stoughton Vet is just wonderful. They've furnished us a key to their facility. We're able to do drop-offs. We're not able to, or we don't have to keep the dog for a really long time in most cases.
Or drive it to Madison.
Or drive, yeah.
Which a lot of agencies are having to do, is drive it actually to the Humane Society. So thank God Stoughton Vet allows us to keep it there, and then they just call in the morning or typical business hours, and Humane Society comes down and picks it up from them. So
Any other questions, comments? All right.
Another kind of just more of a standard request. This is just a vehicle that has kind of met its life expectancy. It's is a sedan. Ford no longer produces a police sedan. This one, the miles are somewhat low. As you can see, that it has 9,000 hours, and it's deemed in good condition via our fleet. But considering the year and the condition of the squad overall, we selected it as a good one to replace. And kind of in a hierarchy, it would be our next, and that's why it's before your eyes tonight.
with that being a sedan also, that's the civilian model would be similar to a Taurus. I don't know that the department realized it when they ordered it, but it's a real small car, and we've got some real big guys. So when it became squad assignment issues, it became a big issue of like, well, the only car left is this one, but Sean Poole, who's almost 7 feet tall, can't even get close to get into it. Some of our bigger guys just don't fit, so that's part of the reason the mileage might be a little bit lower, is it doesn't get used just because it's a harder vehicle to work with for a bunch of people.
Is there anything you can do to reduce the hours? I mean, I know you have to keep them running. Maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Oftentimes, keep in mind we're 24/7, so they're not just your typical, 8 hours on the road. Some vehicles are stretched out. Some will run like 3 days straight. We assign our squads and try to move around. We just did a reassignment where we recognized a similar vehicle was lightly used, but also was getting hours. The mileage was down, so we reassigned that from our sergeant work group to our patrol work group. One of the issues with idling, and I talked to Alder Jensen earlier this evening about it, is that when the vehicle's on duty with the officer, there's a computer running in the squad, and there's such a heavy draw from the electrical components. Oftentimes they leave it running or idling as they're on break. Sometimes you'll walk out here and you'll see a squad idling, no one's in it. The reasoning behind that is the power for those items, including the computer, the MDC, will shut down and it'll shut off the computer. So then when the officer has to leave in haste to respond to a call, they'll go out in the parking lot and they're offline. So we're not recording what they're doing. They don't have the call information. They have to revisit logging in, and it takes several minutes.
Is there anything around that I mean, that seems like I mean, if you think those computer systems could
There's
be...
talk that the new Ford squads, which I don't know if that's 2024, 2025
Yeah.
yet, they haven't even guaranteed they're going to make 2024 squads that are Fords, are going to have a plug-in that will then allow it to power all your computers and all that stuff, so you can shut it off and then still have that stuff draw from an outlet. If you go over to the fire department, their trucks are off, but they're all plugged in, drawing electricity so that their computers and stuff are all ready to go if they get a call. As of right now, there doesn't exist with the cars we have.
Yeah, in our first days, as you remember, with our MDCs, we experienced that same issue with battery drain, getting knocked out of our login, and we actually, in the garage downstairs, our 2-stall, we actually did have a component where just basically plugging in like almost like a boat, if you will, where it would charge the battery, keep everything going. The problem is just the time and being able to think like, hey, I need to unplug it, because there's a couple pull-offs, if you will, where people forget and they're in a hurry and just backed out. But that was one thing we did early on. We've tried different batteries as well, like more expensive batteries, to see if they would hold up, and that did not help either.
But you're hoping that the new, F-150 or the SUV that you're trying to replace this squad is not going to be a hybrid, or you're trying to see if it could be a hybrid that has this plug-in component?
That would be nice. Now, when we order these vehicles, if they even accept an order, we're at their mercy again. I'm not sure if they'll accept orders for hybrids. Ford's talking about a really short model year for police vehicles next year. So the 2024s will be just a short window, as maybe the 25s will have some of those items that Lieutenant Hill was talking about. I'm not sure.
When we're getting ideas for pricing to put together this presentation for you guys, I talked to Kaiser, one of the bigger Ford dealerships in the whole area. There's other ones. And I talked to their government accounts guy. He doesn't even plan on ordering any hybrids for the 2024 models. And I said, well, why aren't you going to order any of those? And he said, because I want to get cars. And for 2023, everybody who ordered hybrids didn't get them. 2022, everybody who ordered hybrids didn't get them. Ford just didn't make hybrids in the police Interceptor models for whatever reason Ford didn't want to. So one of the biggest dealerships in the area says, I'm not even going to put in orders for them because the history over the last 2 years showed that Ford isn't going to fulfill those orders. So he wants to order cars that he can get so that police departments can get cars. This car stuff's a mess right now.
Yeah.
Just trying to find squads.
Yeah, we turned to Dodge. We had the opportunity to get a Dodge through the local dealer, but they don't offer a hybrid. But we have one ordered, and that was supposed to be here months ago, and it's still out there somewhere.
And weren't we trying to keep all our vehicles of the same kind of Ford versus the other one, so Public Works doesn't have to continue to buy different tools? And
we consulted with Public Works on the Dodge choice, and they said that would not be an issue. They have I believe, a Dodge in their fleet.
Yeah, the biggest thing is in the perfect world, yes, we could stick with Ford. Get whatever guys they're working with. The other thing to think about is a lot of these vehicles
okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Move on.
Yeah, and again, like our new vehicles, even if we were able to land a new Ford SUV, all of our equipment inside won't transfer to the new models for the most part, other than the computer and the rifle and shotgun holders. But like the cage and so on, it's all new stuff, all different design vehicle. Okay, so then one of the other liability issues we recognize is something we've talked about for years. We've made some improvements in this area, but we feel that we've found a solution that will benefit us in the long run. So we began to explore like what type of policy program would be productive and useful, and we settled in on a Lexipol after, again, we had another vendor offer as a demonstration. This one costed less, but didn't have near the feature as Lexipol. Lexipol's an international, well-known company. Again, we are 24/7, 29 full-time employees, and it's just hard to connect with everyone. Lexipol offers a lot of features, including daily training sessions. Currently, we have older policies. We use a small vendor, a local vendor out of Wisconsin that basically is a storage online program. If you could give me the next slide, I believe. And that's what our current login looks like. So we're able to access our own policies. However, all the updating pretty much is up to us. And there are so many things that change in laws, and we, as a staff, are unable to keep up with each and every of those. The policies that we have now are somewhat piecemeal. We, again, kind of, much like everyone else, we look at other communities that are successful and maybe borrow their policies. But things change all the time. We get an occasional legal update at in-service. One of our gripes about our own training, we train with 4 other police departments, is we don't see a lot of Stoughton-specific training. We feel that Lexipol, as a vendor, would offer us a specific updated policy that would be a lot easier to understand than our own, and we're able to access it online. The problem with our old one is it's just not updated on any type of regular basis. It's difficult to keep up with, and we're concerned about what our people are learning, because everything we do pretty much revolves around policy and procedure, and without that ability to push out new policies and log what our employees are doing. This Lexipol would actually send out a training session each day. When you report for work, you'd log in, and it'd be about a 5 to 10 minute session. They'd have a scenario. They'd refer to one of our policies, perhaps several policies, a task, or one of the challenges may be like a vehicle pursuit. What do you do in this case? It'll test the officer and offer explanations of if they were correct or if they need to improve. And all that is documented. We feel that over a year's time we'd add about maybe a regular in-service day to our training regiment, just doing it in-house with an online system. They have employees at Lexipol that do nothing but this. They're professionals. This particular program is recommended by the Wisconsin Police Chiefs and our own insurer, CIVMIC. In fact, they offer a 5% discount because we're CIVMIC members. It is somewhat new concept for us to pay, $30-some thousand a year to get on board. Right now, our current model that we use, the local one, is $550 a year, but you pay for what you get. We had talked earlier, there was a time we'd think, well, this is crazy to spend this much money, but given what's going on and how muddy some of the topics that we address are, we feel that this would be a step in the right direction. We'd have an updated policy, again, that with daily training. We'd be able to document each and every visit that our officers and dispatchers make to the program, and we'd be able to track their progress.
Seems reasonable. Lisa, do you have a question?
And this one too, as Lieutenant Hill had mentioned earlier, just to be clear, this also has a subscription fee. So moving past the first year to implement it, it would cost us, let me see, I've got the number here somewhere. It's about just under $32,000 to go on board. The annual subscription, which again would come out of the operating, was just under $13,000 a year.
And that's they've got legal staff that as they're updating and writing our policies, it's being reviewed by lawyers who are working with the most current information from the most current case law. They're then deciding what, with our help, prioritizing the training and what, we'll have different tiers of policies. Like these are our super high risk ones. We want these trained more than maybe some of these lower risk policies. They'll be helping us push those out, documenting the training, and this system will be huge compared to what we've got now. The only thing we can see right now is if an officer opened the file. So it's really just a box of files electronically, and they'll say, yep, this officer opened it. I can tell you, I can literally click on it and click close, having never read a word of the thing, and it'll say, yep, he opened it. And that's, if we were to get sued, they're going to say, well, your officer reviewed the policy. We can't say, did he review it for a second or 30 minutes? Was he ever tested on it? Did he show comprehension and knowledge of this policy? Obviously, that's why chief of police associations and insurance companies are backing this sort of thing, is the liability side of it, and they can save money when they can show that sort of thing and possibly distance themselves from liability and legal responsibility.
So there's like modules. As soon as you log in, you have to read it. You have some questions that you have to answer. So
Correct.
Yeah, that would be the daily training. They also, if something changes, let's say there's a change in a state law, and they change the policy because it's specific to Wisconsin. Their legal team will catch that. They'll push that new policy out, and then they'll highlight what changed. So it makes it easier as well for the reader. So you'll see the new stuff's in red. They do a side-by-side comparison of the new policy. Again, it's easier to absorb that information.
Is there another agency that you work with that's using it? One of the other municipalities?
We know Menasha in the state is one of the first agencies to go to it, and that was in 2011. I believe Josh at Fire uses Lexipol for their policy. I don't know the difference between like police and fire, what they offer. If it, I don't know where he's at cost wise. I believe we were looking at. Don't quote us, but I believe Middleton was one that was identified.
Possibly Verona.
And you say it's, to purchase, it's like 32,000,
Yeah, the first year.
and then it's 13,000 per year afterwards?
Yeah, and then they did tell us that each year it'd probably increase between 3% and 5% for that annual fee.
The first year is the heavy lifting because they're going to take our entire policy manual and rewrite it. And they're paying lawyers to help them do that. A lot of the canned policies that every department has to have, use of force, pursuits, I'm sure are going to be similar, but they're going to take a little bit of what we got in ours and sprinkle it in. So there's heavy lifting the first year for them, thus the higher costs. And then it's just maintaining, updating, and then the testing and tracking.
As long as, now you're adding another 13,000 onto your operating budget, so now you're,
Yeah, like 25,
28,
26. Yeah.
29,000 just on these two things every year that it's going to go up. Yep. Did you have any other? Okay. Next.
Looks like we're not getting any less expensive here. We're just here to kind of give our take on at least beginning to explore a new public safety facility. As you can see, ours is we've been here since the mid-'80s. Maybe the next slide kind of just gives us the history. I know the PD at one point occupied about half the ground floor, and then as EMS moved out, we took over the whole first floor, and then eventually we moved up here with our administrative end on about half the building. So overall, we're pretty crowded. It seems that right now we're at capacity for our officers with their cubicles. We're looking at doing just kind of a minor remodel in the meantime to kind of extend the life and make this place a little more safer and a little more useful. But let's see if you can give me the next slide. One suggestion, and McFarland, I'll use it as an example, which are kind of nothing new. They're kind of doing a combined public safety, sharing the needs with fire and EMS along with police. We did have the opportunity to tour the brand new McFarland facility, and it's just quite well thought out. I know there's been concerns over environmental impact. Their particular facility is solar and geothermal.
100% self-sufficient.
Yeah, and actually
energy.
overproducing, they're saying.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out, like, what do we do with all this extra stuff? Will we be able to sell it? Just long-term, I think it's time to start considering it. It's easy as us as cops to tell you we need a new police department without being able to really quantify those needs. I think that the push would be just to hire experts and start considering it. You can see some of the exterior views. You're all familiar with this building since you're inside of it. We have 4 garage stalls. I guess it would be 6 if you count what we have up behind City Hall, the old City Hall. We're just small. It's tight downstairs. We're challenged with being on 3 floors. We also have a 24-hour dispatch center. All these things have been remodeled, kind of revamped, and just kind of extending the life of the entire PD. Again, location for us isn't quite as big a deal as I know you'll hear from Chief Rip and Director Scheel as he presents regarding this opportunity, but there's suggestions to perhaps move more west than where we're located now. As far as the, maybe another slide, I just included some pictures of downstairs, just illustrating what it looks like. I think a good idea at some point, if you and the council consider doing this, would be some night we could tour and you'd get a real good look at what we have, where these pictures don't quite do it justice. I mean, it definitely needs some improvement. And I think, again, as you look forward, as our PD grows and as the city grows, it's just a need. Another slide, there's our basement with some of our evidence storage. And then the second floor across the hallway, which we make do. We're certainly, there's places that are worse, I'm sure. But we feel that years from now it'd be important to overcome some of these things and just have a larger building.
Would you recommend starting brand new or renovating this one and expanding?
And to me, it'd be brand new. I know there's been talk about, there's been some commercial facilities that came on the market recently, but when you start if you start looking at them without really digging into the details, just as a set of eyes, it seems like it costs so much to turn those particular, buildings that we kind of looked at from just online view, like into a police department. Again, maybe hiring someone that could come up with the numbers and offer guidance would, lend itself to money well spent. Again, that's without me knowing. I don't have any dollars attached to this. We've heard different numbers from some of our neighbors, including McFarland. Monona's kind of a year or two ahead of us, if you will, into exploring the same. And the prices keep going up on all these buildings and labor, so I don't know where a new one would land here dollar-wise, but I would just encourage you to consider it. I know Director Scheel will have his own presentation. I just wanted to show our support for it.
And this is something that I kind of initiated internally. It just felt like it was time to at least have a conversation, bring in a third party and let them, analyze what we currently have and help us determine at what point we may or may not need more. It might be something as simple as, we could remodel the existing building somehow, or maybe we need to secure land while it's available. They may have recommendations as far as having police, fire, and EMS in all one building and what the pros and cons of that look like. I've also toured Mount Horeb. They did theirs a few years ago, and there's definitely some efficiencies that can be gained. This building here, I think, could be used for any number of things if long term or, it's decided to put up a new facility. Its proximity to downtown, I think, provides opportunity for community space if that's something the council would desire. So I just felt like we should at least have a conversation. It's been many years, and Rodney probably remembers since we really did, kind of a needs assessment. And I think out of that, the fire station came. That's been, 15 years now. EMS did their remodel. That one is fully depreciated now. So it just felt like it was at least time to have the discussion and see where it takes us, if anywhere. So we'd be looking to have a third party come in and do this and, bring us some recommendations and do what you want to do.
Any questions of us?
Seeing them. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Public Works.
All right, do you have the presentation?
Yeah, he's given a updated PowerPoint, so I'll take a look.
You got it?
Yep, I'll take that.
All right.
Well, I didn't bring you back up for myself, but maybe Lisa or Tom can give the presentation. We did this about 2 hours ago. So. Let's wait for Tim to come back then.
We want to take a 5-minute break? Does anybody need to take a 5-minute break? People seems to be leaving. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Seems a 5-minute break.
This will be exciting, so I promise.
I know, well, so everybody is focused on it. Get everybody to stretch their legs.
I'm gonna bang the gavel. I'm getting close. I'd have to get up to do it, though.
All right, you ready? All right, thank you. All right, so tonight we'll talk about the 2024 capital projects that we have in Public Works. Typically, Rodney and I present on this because there's a lot of street construction within this proposal. Tonight he couldn't be with us, so I'll do it myself. So street construction, like I just talked about, and then next slide, please. Oh, two slides back. Can I have your mouse? Does that work? If I click it, there we go. Oh, that's not working either. How do I go back? Can I not go back on this?
Try left click.
Tried that. Oop. Can you take me back a few? Then I can go forward from here. No, I'm gonna keep it after we get straight here. One more back. There we go. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about street construction, parks improvements. That's just the maintenance end. Dan later tonight is going to talk about some of the parks improvements that he has from a planning perspective. Then public works equipment purchasing. We'll start with the capital construction projects that we have slated for you. But first we want to talk about how we select. Oh no, I might need to give it back. First I want to talk about how we select these roads. So every 2 years we do a PACER rating, which is pavement surface evaluation and rating. This system was actually developed by the University of Wisconsin-Madison to rate asphalt roadways 1 through 10. Basically, a 10 is a brand new road, 1 is a failed road. We also look at the type of roadway, whether it's residential or collector, the traffic volumes, if there's any planned underground utility work. So we do collaborate with utilities each year. We're getting better and better at collaborating with them and solidifying our program together. We also look at DOT planned work, which, as you know, in 25, 6, and 27, there's going to be some DOT planned work along the 51 corridor. Here's the PACER rating. So like I talked about, 1 through 10. 10 is a brand new road, 1 is failed. Here's our GIS layer that shows all the roads that have been rated. If you notice, there's quite a bit of green, which is good. Red is bad. There's a mix of everything in there. I do think we're making good progress. Tom and I were talking about earlier, I wish that when we first started this that we saved the screenshot of each year to see the progress that we made from a visual standpoint. So I have started to keep those starting this year so we can see that over time. I think that'd be really a neat visual thing for our residents. Just so you guys know, we do get quite a bit of money back for the money that we do invest into our roadways through our general transportation aids. In 2023, we got just over $1.3 million back from the state. And that's a share of our costs that we put into our programs over a 6-year period. We also do have connecting highways that we get from the state. Basically from Chalet to Roby is a connecting highway that we're responsible to maintain, and they give us $73,690 per year to do that. So over time you can see that in 2015, that's when we really started to reinvest into our roadways. That at that time in general road aids we're getting back $526,000. Today in 2023 we're getting $1.3 million. So it just goes to show that our investment really is starting to pay dividends over time. The different types of practices that we use on our surfaces or our roadways, one is a mill and overlay. We don't do a ton of these because basically this is taking the top 2 inches off the top of the road and then replacing it with a new mat. This lends itself to reflective cracking within 3 to 5, 7 years. If you notice that on 51 to the west, that was done a few years ago, and now it's starting to reflect, crack through. So all the cracks that are underneath are starting to reflect to the surface, and that does affect your ride. It also opens the asphalt up to precipitation or water getting into the base, which is what we're trying to prevent. So we do very few mill and overlays. We tend to do a lot more pulverization, where we can grind up the whole roadway, make any base corrections that we may need to do. Then we can also put a crown into the road. A lot of our roads in Stoughton do not have much of a crown, so that tends to harbor water on a flat surface, which is not good for asphalt. So that's our main practice to revitalize our roadways. The other option that we may choose is a full reconstruction. A lot of times that has to do with underground infrastructure replacement that we work with Stoughton Utilities on. So that's a full curb and gutter replacement. A lot of times the grade changes, so we'd redo all the sidewalks. And I will say too that during a pulverization, we do spot curb and gutter replacement, and then also sidewalk spot replacement as well. Obviously, total reconstruction is a lot more invasive, so we're very careful on how we select those types of roadways. Much more expensive, but sometimes they need to be built from the ground up without digging. We can dig and put new infrastructure in, water, sewer, storm water, all that gets replaced. For our 2024 project locations, you can see that we're somewhat sporadic through the downtown area, then up to the west and then northwest of town. So we'll step through each one of these projects and then answer any questions that you may have as we go along. The first project area is west-south from Page Street to Van Buren. This is a total reconstruct. This roadway is deteriorating very quickly. There's a heck of a cross slope on this street, so we're going to try to make some improvements on that. However, we were trying to avoid any retaining wall type of stuff, so we're already kind of in the design phase of this project. But this is a total reconstruct. As you notice, the pacer rating on this street is a 2. So this will be a full curb and gutter replacement along with sidewalk replacement. This is also a major corridor for the school, crossover Van Buren. Here's some pictures that we have of the mat. To be honest, I don't think these pictures do it justice. It's a lot worse condition than these pictures would show. Next project is Nygaard Street. We're doing Jackson Street as we speak from 51 to Silverado. So this basically takes off from there next year going north and completes this corridor. This is a pulverize and overlay, so a much less intrusive project. Spot curb and gutter, spot sidewalk replacement. Right now this is a 4 on our pacer rating. I think it's probably a 3. Every 2 years we do pacer ratings, so we actually due for a new pacer rating this fall, which will happen in the next month or so. This one has a slag seal on it. A lot of our slag sealed roads are starting to come apart, which is concerning. We're keeping our eye on what's going on with that. But this is a main collector, and so you can see that starting to peel off. We're starting to get some raveling in this road. It's going to start to deteriorate pretty quickly if we don't do something. Johnson Street, this is a long stretch, basically from Page to Eisenhower, and then Eisenhower to Roby, kind of 2 sections. We do this in two sections or 2 phases within the same year. This would be a pulverize and overlay, much like Nygaard, so spot curb and gutter replacement, spot sidewalk replacement. This is a 3 and declining. So this is 3 is kind of an average of this whole corridor, but up towards Page, it's really bad, really bad. So this is we're looking to do a pulverize project on this one. There's some pictures of the roadway. It's getting to the point where our patching efforts are fruitless, and so it's time to replace this road. Wilson Street, so this one is an infill. So this is near the high school between Van Buren and Lincoln. And so basically this one, we've done some improvements on Lincoln, we've done some improvements on Van Buren and Wilson. This one was left behind basically. So this one needs to get infilled. In the future, we're going to be more cognizant of these types of things, that we're not bridging the gap between a new project and another new project and leaving an old street in between. So this is just to make up that or to fill that gap. This is a pulverization project, and the pace rate in this right now is at 2. Here's some pictures of it. Gregg Trail. So we're looking at doing from Lincoln to Van Buren and adding storm sewer in this area to prepare for another project in 2025 on Lincoln. If you have been in this area, that intersection of Lincoln and Gregg Trail is dilapidated because of groundwater issues. And so the issue is going to be corrected by relieving that with under drains, and so we need a place to take that water. And so in 2024, the idea is to redo this road, add storm sewer, and get that storm sewer down to Van Buren, where it will go back into our system underground. And so we need to do this next year in preparation for 2025. There's some pictures of Gregg Trail. The surface is not in good condition. You'll notice there's slag seal on this one, and it's starting to peel up, and underneath is revealing its ugly truth. 4th Street, East South, and 5th Street. So this is one project in itself. This one has been sort of lingering out there for some time. We've been waiting for development to happen along the riverfront. Seems like that has stalled. So now is the time that we feel we need to move on this. This is actually a major detour route for the project that's going to happen in 2025 on East Main with the DOT. So we need to do this in 24 in preparation for that. Also, this roadway, as you know, is in terrible shape. And so we're also going to be adding some pedestrian safety, some additional lighting to this corridor to get people from the riverfront to the downtown area and vice versa. And also, while we're at it, we're going to do the section of 5th Street. That's about to fall off the hill, so we're going to do that this time as well. Pictures. All right, so there's the budget numbers. So let me look on this screen. So 4th Street, East, South, and 5th, originally we're looking for to utilize some TIF dollars. However, with nothing coming out of the ground, it's pretty tough to use that increment. So, I mean, Dave, I'm not sure what your thoughts on that are, or how that would even work, or if that's just going to be.
If you can give me the breakdown of the first 7 million, what's for those 3 lines highlighted in yellow?
Yep.
And then what's for the others, so I can at least.
Yep. So just so you guys know, we do every road, we have a breakdown. We have a spreadsheet, even assessments, we have everything broken down. This week, combine them all to show you what the total cost of construction is going to be, also engineering. So Dave, I can provide you that, each line item, we can get that separated out. Obviously, that'd be up to you how you want to structure all that, but the total amount is $3.69 million for the construction end of it. Another $412,000 in engineering costs. The yellow is all stormwater liability, so that's $671,000. And then the engineering for stormwater is just a touch over $85,000. So another project is the Highland Sump Pump Discharge Phase 2. This year we're doing along Highland on a Phase 1. So the sump pumps in this area run continuously onto the surface. And so we're looking at capturing that water underground and taking it to our subsurface stormwater system. This year we're doing, like I said, on Highland, we're looking at doing this with our in-house staff. So basically just paying for materials. We just got a materials list for this project for this year, and it's about $7,000. So the number that you see in here, if successful, I see coming down dramatically. So this is worst case scenario, hiring a contractor. There's some tree considerations that we're making every effort to work around, even creating easements, working with the property owners to avoid trees. So we're doing what we can to preserve those, working through a difficult area to get this subsurface. The hydrodynamic separator, this one's Rodney's baby, but basically this is a centrifuge that drops out the solids to the bottom, brings the oils to the top, and then the water in the middle basically goes to our stormwater system. And then we clean out the bottom periodically and get the heavies out and suck the oils off the top. Rodney did secure some grant funding, or the majority of the project is grant funded. The balance would be $22,500 that would be up to the city to support. This would be in the riverfront development area as well. Another one of Rodney's programs is the Stormwater Quality Management Plan. Every 5 years, I believe, this needs to be updated. So we did this 5 years ago next year. And so basically this talks about what we need to do to protect our waterways, the things that we do in public works like street sweeping, leaf collection, that's all part of it. They look at all of our stormwater basins and our practices on how we maintain those. So this is something that it has to get done in 2024. Our sidewalk replacement program, again, this is also Rodney and Sue. They manage this program. I'll just say we have deficiencies all over the place when it comes to sidewalks, so these dollars are definitely needed to make some headway on that. I know through construction that we try to do everything we can within those construction areas to make these improvements, but there's definitely more that needs to get done outside of the construction area. Roadway preventative maintenance, this is critical to protect our investment. So we do crack filling every year. So we break the city up into quadrants. Anything that's basically a pacer rating of 6 to 7 or above, we crack fill. Your newer roads we aren't going to touch for about 3 to 5 years, but we do a pretty extensive crack filling program, again, to protect our investment, because that's going to prolong the life of that road, extend that curve, if you will, out before it starts to deteriorate. We also do our patching lower left, so that aggregate and the emulsion gets paid for out of this fund, and then some light patching. Asphalt overlay program, so this is relatively new as of this last year. So we're looking at bridging the gap between some roads that aren't in the program for rehabilitation, aren't on the radar for Stoughton Utilities for 8 to 10 years. We did a test on Amundsen in Public Works. We've been talking about that the last couple of months. So basically we demoed a asphalt zipper is what they call it, and that pulverizes the road. It goes in the front of our end loader. That'll be in a few slides from now. But we were able to do Amundsen, which is basically a two block section, in 12 days. So we took the entire mat off, pulverized it down to the base, undercut it, added new base material back in, graded it, fine graded it, put the asphalt back on in 12 days. So that's pretty incredible. So we're looking to enhance that program to do some more filling in the gap of some roads that are left behind, and doing that with our in-house staff. Part of our demo was to see how much our in-house staff could do, how much time and effort that's going to take, because if we do this, we're not doing something else. So those are opportunity costs that we're looking at. Can we actually do that? So it takes 3 people, and to pulverize the 2 block section, it took about 4.5 hours. So that's not bad. Future project engineering, I just want to include this because there is some engineering costs that we put in ahead of projects to make sure that we're ready to go, especially with the DOT project being the build grant. That's outside of 51, but that's a grant that we got for our bipartisan infrastructure law. And the engineering on that, it seems a little high at $191,000, but there's a lot more things that need to happen with the DOT, a lot more requirements that they have of us to provide to them. So this basically takes us through construction. The DOT projects, the major projects, 5th Street to Chalet, it's actually to Spring Road, excuse me, but Chalet is the end of our connecting highway, so that's all of our responsibility. So $25,000 to get us through that project, because we do have some liability on that project when it comes to different lighting and crosswalks. 2025 project engineering, we do this every year ahead of the next year, and then stormwater engineering, the same thing as the last one. Parks maintenance, again, this is just the maintenance end. Dan will go shortly here. So trash cans, picnic tables, different composite things that we're moving towards will get replaced. We're getting rid of all the 55-gallon old barrels that, you know, they look terrible. So we're almost done replacing all those. That's just and every year we do a portion of our parks.
Do you also put recycling receptacles?
Yeah, I should have put the blue ones in there too. Yeah.
You knew I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So yes, 88 side by side. So we've had the ones where they have the dual, like you saw down. Those don't work. People they commingle it, and then basically it's all trashed and it's been compromised. So
on the recycling of what can actually go in there? I mean, I know we talked about that a few years ago.
We'll have to get a sticker. You can get some decent stickers. The problem is the globe, you need that sticker to stand it, but they have them. I'm sure they do. Or even on the flat part around the edge.
Yeah, I would look into that, because always, again, people throw things that shouldn't be in there, and then the whole thing gets tossed.
Yeah.
Not that recycling is...
It does go to a MRF, materials recycling facility, and they do sort it on a belt. However, if whoever's picking it sees that there's too much trash in it, it goes in the trash. It never has the opportunity to go to the MRF. So, yeah, I think we could look into doing that and do that better.
Okay, thanks.
88 transition plan implementation. So we work with Dan on this. There's a plan put in place. So each year we spend $35,000 to do ADA transition plan, things that are in basically the spreadsheet that we have. So we're knocking those off pretty quickly. So we're actually making pretty good headway on it. Equipment replacement. So we have a scoring system that we've moved to this year that actually uses our software system. It's actually more accurate than what we used to use, in our opinion. So it actually uses the data that's been collected since 2013. So most of these vehicles obviously have a long track record in the system now. So we feel comfortable that we can move to this system, and it gives us a good indicator of it does need to get replaced or not. Truck number 47, so basically this is a 2003 truck, and we're looking at replacing that with an F-150. I will tell you that we did look into the Lightnings, which is a fully electric truck. So there's two things. The Lightnings that we can get are only a crew cab. So it's a 4-door crew cab with a 5.5-foot bed, so a short bed. The other thing is cost for these in 2024 is for the lesser battery is $62,724 and $73,621 for an upgraded battery. There definitely is a huge cost difference. So right now we're at $48,500 for an F-150. To put it in perspective, just a few short years ago, 3 years ago, we were paying $32,000. So, and if you go on the lot, you can't touch these. You can't find them for any less than 50. So we've been really trying to keep these trucks longer. If you know us, our estimated useful life is 15 to 20 years. It used to be 12, but we feel that we can keep these longer. We have to, mean, at these price points, we have to do better. I think we do a great job of maintaining our fleet, washing our fleet, getting the salt off. We've been turning our trucks off. The all new lighting systems are LEDs, obviously that's a new thing, but they're meant to run with the engine off. So the battery can support the LED lights. And they're all lit up, you know, people can see them still. But I just wanted you to know we have our finger on the pulse of the hybrids and the fully electric. We actually had it in there to look at the Lightning, to get a Lightning. And knowing that we couldn't get anything longer than a 5.5 foot bed and it's a crew cab, it doesn't really work for us at this point. Our hope is that over time they start to make it for all different models, and that the price point starts to come down. That doesn't even include the infrastructure to put a charging system in. We fully believe that's where we're going in the future, and that's our intention. But right now, with you just heard from PD, the fleet world is crazy, and I think they know that, and so they've definitely, in my opinion, somewhat artificially inflated prices.
No, I was just, where's the question?
Brett, can you get a fire truck in your wash bay?
Yes. Yes. Yep. So the fire trucks, so all the service for all of the fleet, even Stoughton Utilities, comes through our shop. So.
Maybe you said this in Public Works, but will you be adding the equipment scores in on these for the next? Oh, in the packet, they
They're in
don't
there.
have the
So-
equipment scores.
So I pulled a fast one on you. So I updated it
Oh, okay.
ahead of our meeting because I realized I didn't have them in there.
So it'll be in the packet for when we,
Yes.
for next time.
Yes. So,
Updated. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like, I swear I don't see them.
Yeah, because when I made the presentation, that was one thing I was going to get from Bryce and put it in there. He sent it to me like I asked. He did everything he was supposed to do. I dropped the ball and didn't put it back in there. So I apologize. So I did it at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay.
So this is the LEFAC number 42. So we've talked about these larger vehicles before at Public Works and at Council. To be honest, this truck has already been ordered. It was in our 5-year CIP. We've ordered a lot of these trucks already, or given them a notice of intent to purchase, and that's so we can secure these trucks and get them in the year that we're expecting them. Some of these trucks are 3 years out. For example, we ordered a plow truck in 2021. We still haven't got it. So we're hoping that the chassis is going to get to Madison Truck to put the body on in the next month so we can have it for the winter. But there's no guarantees. So it's critical that we get these POs out and these letters of intent out as quickly as possible so we can get in the queue to get these chassis in. So this one we've already ordered. We're actually slated to get this in January of this next year, which is right in line with where the budget's at.
Can you remind us how the financing thing works? Do you have to pay anything at the time
So-
that you put in the PO?
Nope.
You don't,
So
we don't pay for it.
we
Makes
issue
it
a
challenge to
PO.
budget then.
Yes, we issue a PO, which is a contract to purchase. However, we've talked, either we issue a PO, which is a contract to purchase, or a letter of intent to purchase. So if we issue a PO, basically we have to have that money backed, I think by state statute, which we have money to do that. But if we didn't do that, we ordered them, let's say you approved it in November, and we issued POs after you guys approved the budget, then we wouldn't see, and we're expecting it this next year, in a few short months, we wouldn't see that truck for 3 years. So by doing it this way, we're actually getting these trucks on time. And they also told us too that, let's say something happened in the city and you said we can't fund that anymore. They're going to sell this truck to 10 other people tomorrow. So, but if we don't purchase it and we try to buy that again, it's going to be much more expensive, and it's going to be 5 years from now. And the other thing too that we got to keep in mind is that we need to, we have a plan, but we also need to secure these trucks before 2027, which is another emission standard increase. And the prices for that we've heard are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 potentially increase. So it's critical that we stay on plan. We're not doing anything, ahead of time, but we're staying on our plan. But it's critical that we issue these POs to get these trucks on time in the year that they're budgeted. It's a tool cap. So we use these all over the place for not only the parks but in the streets. So these have a ton of different attachments on the front. This one's reached the end of its useful life. We're looking to replace that. If you notice, the trade-in value is incredibly high for these, which is a good thing. If we wait any longer, they do tend to have some issues later in life, and that could go drastically down. So essentially, it's $36,000 is our net. This is Smithco Diamond Groomer. This one's a Cadillac. We're not going to get that. So we're going to get something that's more in line with what we need and what fits with our program. So that's going to be probably in the $20,000 range somewhere. We just demoed one today. They're even having a difficult time finding demo units to bring in. So we demoed one today that's going to work for us. We're securing pricing on that. There's a lot of different attachments that we got to look at getting. So I'd venture to guess, and I'll work with Dave, and he'll get that out to you, but it'll probably be in the mid to upper 20s. Going back to you real quick, I had to be determined for the rating because we just had some engine issues with that Diamond Groomer, and so that's gonna change. Moving on to the trommel. So this would be at our Yardways site. So if you guys use the Yardways site, you know that we have compost material that we go through and make available to the public. So we trommel that to make that end product. Right now, we beg, borrow, and short of stealing from our friend Compost Jason to make that happen. And the problem is his doesn't look like that. It's basically a quarter the size of that. It takes us a week to run through our material, and we're at the mercy of him to get it. And so sometimes if he says, hey, I can give it to you for a week, well, if it rains for 2 days during that week, we can't even use it. So not only compost, but we also have a low hazard exemption for our street sweepings. And so that exemption means that we don't need to take those street sweepings to the landfill. It's rocks, basically. So we do soil samples on it. It has to meet a certain criteria from the DNR. And if it passes that, then we can basically put that material on city property and cap it. You have to track it over time, but that doesn't go to the landfill. So that material also has to go through a trommel. It has to have a 1/4-inch screen on the trommel. And then that separates all the trash from the aggregate. Then we take the trash to the landfill, we leave the aggregates in place, and we use this low hazard exemption to reduce our tipping fees and also divert it from the landfill. We also screen topsoil. We do get some topsoil from some developers if they're trying to get rid of it. We'll take it because it's good topsoil, but we do need to screen it, get the rocks out of it, any sticks or anything like that. And so we also combine the topsoil with our compost as a mix. And then we utilize that back in the community on various different projects. And then we also make it available to the public on their way out of the Yardways site. I will say that this price may need to come up. We've done some recent searches, and to find a good used one, we're looking at $100,000 to $130,000, somewhere in there. But we want something that's going to last 15 to 20 years. That's our projection on it. We don't want something that's going to break down and 5 years from now we got to replace it. So I'll work with Dave on that shortly to get that updated for you as well. That's the asphalt zipper that I was talking about. So this one, we are looking to offset our costs for our pulverization projects that we have lined up, but also with the asphalt overlay program to use this for that. We can also use this for parks trails, grinding up the asphalt, or even grinding up different types of aggregates and creating a new base. So this one does have a price tag of $332,000. We are looking at offsetting the cost of this from our current CIP projects then also the asphalt overlay CIP projects. And then this one, we do have the option of paying for over time through a municipal program. So Dave, we can talk through that. You guys can debate that too, but you can pay for that over, I think, 5 or 6 years. There's an interest rate, of course, for that, but that is an option to pay for that over the course of time through our project savings. Yes.
I got a quick question.
Yep.
So this, that is for.
Yeah, I mean, if you give me a loader, I'll take it, but but no, it's just the device on the front, so it's not the loader. It does come with a trailer, so you're not taking it around the community on the front of an end loader. It comes on a trailer, then you drive to the site with the loader, then you pick it off the trailer and do your thing. I do have links to videos. We watched one today at Public Works, but it shows Amundsen. It did a video for us, and it's really a pretty neat project. I think I said this before, but basically we did the whole project in 12 days. So that's really a neat thing, and we did it all in-house. This is a slide-in unit for our tandem truck. Basically, during our snow events, the salt gets basically quarantined to the front because the box is so big. So this one does have a conveyor on it that dispenses it out the back. All these have controls so that we monitor how much salt we put out. So this is just one of those things with this truck being so long that we need to have a way to get that salt to the back efficiently. Right now, this driver could be out of salt and he wouldn't even know it until he goes around the block and realizes that nothing happened. So this ensures that there's always salt back to the auger. There's an auger in the tray in the back. This makes sure that there's always salt being dispensed out the back when he needs it.
Brett, even with the salt in the back, does it have a cutoff switch or some alarm that goes off that when it's out, that there's nothing that's circulating back, that it goes back to the driver to let them know that they're done?
So when their wheels start to spin because they're light, they know they're out of salt. Not to be brash, but there's no. We know we're out of liquid, but the salt we don't know when that's not dispensing salt. In the nighttime, you can see it coming out the side because we have lights back there. In the day, it's really tough to see the salt, but we know when it's flicking off the side because we have lights that shine on it. So our guys and gals are pretty good about knowing when they're out of salt. But I will say that most of the time during our routes, we never use a truck full of salt. So they used, not to go in the past, but they used to use maybe 2 loads of salt per route. We don't even come close to that. It's a single axle full of salt, maybe. So that's just attesting to our calibration and knowing what we put out, knowing that we don't need to paint the city white. You don't need to do that. So I think the guys really bought into that, and this is just another tool to make our operation better. Other items? What did I say?
It's a typo.
What did I say? Oh, we don't need to delve into that. Let's talk about signs, Dave. So, yeah. So on the sign, we'll spell it right, but so we are looking in the capital budget. We did put the signs in there. I know we've talked about it for the last couple of years. Really, these signs would be the gateway to the city. We're looking at 3 signs primarily. We do have an option for another sign potentially near the Opera House where the current billboard is. So we're looking at on 51 on the east side towards the Scallon home. There's a sign currently there. We'd be working with them, potentially getting an easement if there's not already one to put a sign in that location. No, not that one. The sign guy, we were looking at that, he asked about the metal mounts. Long story, but yeah. So then on the other sign on the west side on 138, where the utility substation is, towards the road. I talked to Jill about that. We would need to secure an easement use that spot. And then the third one would be to the north on 51, either towards B, or we do have a stormwater basin that is more towards Stoughton lumber. We do have to be outside the right-of-way for these, so that's another challenge. But I think those are good locations that we would look to secure if this is something that you guys want with the signs.
Would you also consider one on like Williams Drive or something coming in from
I
the
can do
other direction?
whatever you want, I can do it. So Williams Drive is a little bit tricky because I don't believe we own that west portion. We have to look at the DCI map, but I think that's township in there.
There's a couple townships out there on Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, working with them, though, there's always a chance that we can do something with that. Maybe it's, because I should say these are also digital signs, so they have a digital component to them. So we can post different messages on there. If there's another pandemic, we can talk about that. That was really the part of the ARPA that we were talking about, is that we can talk about where you can get, treatment or whatever the case may be with the next one. So this is really an educational thing that we can put out there to the public. Obviously, putting snow emergencies, doing different things with the community events or whatever. We need to probably have a policy on what goes on there. But I really think that message center would really, enhance what we do here in the city.
Phil? Your mic? Phil?
And the project cost estimate amount, that is for total 3 signs.
Yeah. So 3 signs plus we have to do some electrical, and also if there's any easement acquisition that we need to do. Here's the other thing too, is that with these signs, you can make them as expensive as you want, or as cheap as you want. So, I mean, you can spend $200,000 on sign. This is a price point we think is a nice number to get some nice signs with the digital component. The more you put on there, the more brick you put on there, the more it's going to cost.
What's the lifespan of each of these signs?
I think the thing that's going to wear out the quickest would be the digital sign. However, these are all exterior grade signs. I don't want to give you a year right now, but I can talk to the manufacturers about that. Look at the Opera House sign. I mean, that's been there for quite some time. I think maybe it's been replaced because it got vandalized, but those outdoor signs or screens are made for exterior. They do have different cooling mechanisms inside the box, and so they really are built for different climates, hot or cold.
Can they be solarized?
You can do whatever you want.
No, I'm just trying to, we have a sustainability committee, and I'm sure they want to see how we can,
I can ask about that.
if it was just a little panel on it, or
Yeah, I can certainly ask.
you can tell there's all those tax
Yeah.
incentives and everything for solar these days.
Yeah. I mean, it could be incorporated into the sign some way, somehow.
The little
Yeah.
clock is
Yeah.
all solar paneled.
Yeah, so, this is, and there's so many different, from an architectural standpoint, different things we can do. We're gonna have to solidify that. I don't know if a committee or how you want to do that, but there's so many different options out there that we can do with signs. I think we'll need to have a couple different renderings that a group or wherever you choose that's going to make that decision on what these signs look like. Because you can either have them all the same or kind of different in different areas. There's a lot of different things that we can do. I would encourage you not to have a huge group, kind of narrow it down to a smaller group. But there's a lot of different things we can do.
I have a potential kind of funny question, but and we're sure that these signs adhere to our sign ordinances,
Yeah.
so that we're not violating our own.
Yeah. So my first call was to Mike Stacy, and he said that
Okay.
essentially we're fine with whatever we want to do. So,
That would
Yep.
be hilarious that we'd have to take down our own sign.
yeah. So, in the downtown corridor, there could be something different there too. So,
Or change.
yeah. So pedestrian rapid flashing signs. So we are looking at purchasing 2 of these. One would be at Van Buren and West South Street. Basically, this is a school crossing. We are redoing that road next year if approved. So we'll be looking at putting one there. And then also we're looking at putting one into attic stock, because we do have quite a few signs right now that are deployed. If one of those gets hit, the lead time to get one is about 6 weeks. So we need to have one in stock that we can deploy and then order another one and get that coming and put it back in attic stock. That's kind of the plan on that. Questions?
Do I have any questions for Brett? Thank you for your great presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Now on to recreation programs. Sorry, Cindy, I know that you're just like. Just the alphabet. All right, Dan, see that you're online.
Yeah, I'm here. I think I'll just share my screen, Dave, and just run the presentation that way.
Okay.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'll just have you.
No,
just
you
run
know, it was up there, Dan.
It is a
Was it?
It is up there right now, and you just have to put it in
I'm not-
presentation
Just not
mode.
able to see my notes with my slides.
Oh, yeah, you're never able to do that.
So it's the same presentation, Dave. You can just want to run it, then I can see my notes.
The PDF, that's why. Yep, just pulling up the PDF now.
Okay. You can go to the next slide. So, what, sorry. Okay, so just like an overview of my slides in general. So on the top, you'll see the goals and objectives. Those are from our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. And it's really like the why we're doing each of these different projects. So I'm not going to read every single one of them as the slides come up, but you can just see everything is closely related to the corp and why we're doing things. So as far as the Magnolia Springs Park, the land restoration, Heartland Ecological just recently completed the restoration plan for the property. Their findings were a degraded woodland, and there's no resemblance of a native plant community or oak ecosystem in the parkland, but there were bur oak present, and most of the tree canopy was black walnut. So the restoration plan calls for oak savanna restoration, and this would provide like a native woodland canopy, but it would also allow park users to see through the woods because they clear out some of the smaller trees and stuff through there. and it would also provide shade while using the trails. So restoration plan also found erosion along the pond. So there's a beam bank restoration or stabilization that would happen in that restoration plan. And then once the restoration would happen, you would follow up with a short-term management to establish the restoration. So the plan calls for like, the short-term management besides the restoration. So you'll see a series of years and numbers allocated to it, and that's in the plan as far as the different activities that will happen in each year. And then we'd use the impact fees collected from the development to complete the restoration. You can go to the next slide. So the South Loop Trail is it's a trail that would connect Lowell Park to the Magnolia Springs development, and then continue west and eventually connect to Nordic Ridge Park. We recently completed a wetland delineation for the woods in Lowell Park, and there shows there's a viable way to have a trail without disturbing wetlands in there. And then there's a map of a conceptual trail layout and delineation on the next page. So you can go to the next slide, Dave. So that's the top right corner. That's I highlighted the road that is in our corp, and then the bottom left is the delineation. So you can see there's a way to transverse through the property without going through the wetland. So the next year would be the engineering for the project, and the following year in 2025 would be the construction. You can go to the next slide, Dave. So here's another property that has wetland issues. This was actually brought to the Public Safety Committee by Jean Legacki. She lives in the Ridge Street neighborhood and walks the river trail. And Lisa, you might be able to speak to this as well. But to get to the river trail from Ridge Street, pedestrians need to walk on the roadway, actually, Cooper's Causeway. And cars go along the corner there, and it's a blind corner with the woods being there. And it's a safety issue. So I did some investigation and would take the constructed trail through there, and you can go to the next slide, Dave. There's three options for a trail, and we discussed this at Parks and Rec. So the first option is the most cost-effective, and it's using the road right away that's existing there, and you could just have a normal 10-foot wide paved pedestrian trail through there. It's pretty cut and dry, and that's what's actually in the CIP. The total cost for it would be $145,000. Option two, that would consist of using going along the road in Cooper's Causeway, and then that line where it's yellow, that's actually delineated wetland right there. It's 140 linear feet, so you'd have to fill the wetland in, pave the trail. MSA says that we'd likely get a permit from the DNR since it's under 10,000 square feet of wetland fill. However, how you feel about filling in wetlands is probably not the best thing to do. So there's the third option, which would be the paved trail with 140 linear feet of elevated boardwalk instead of filling in the wetland area. And there's a considerable cost difference though for doing the boardwalk. It's about $1,000 a foot for each foot of the boardwalk. So it's about double the cost. There's also a couple other factors in with this. IKI, they want the city to vacate that roadway, which makes the most logical part for a trail, and complete a CSM so they can sell the property as one larger parcel. The second factor is they also own the wetland on the other side of Cooper's Causeway, where we like to have the boardwalk for a continuous loop of the river trail, that would connect to the trail that's existing behind the hospital. So we'd have a continual loop. So there's just different factors with this project. And like I said, option number one is in the budget. If you can go to the next slide. So this is 2023 is the second year of this grow-in program. So a few years ago, somebody sprayed the native plantings along the river there and we've been working on trying to get the new plants established. This year, 2022, they planted seeds, the contractor did, and this year they planted additional seeds, but they also planted wetland or some plugs. And some plants are starting to come up, especially black-eyed Susans, and some of the native seeds that they planted as well. The contractor says it's on schedule. 2024 will be the last year to get it reestablished, and the cost is $2,500. If you can go to the next slide. Both of the parks in 51 West, the master planning process is completed. The plans are adopted. Strand is working on the engineering for Eggleston Woods Park. The budget request is to build out the park, and implementing the master plan using the impact fees collected from the development. So we'd build out this park in 2024 just because the east side of the development we built out, we'd have collected the impact fees by then. Dave, you can go to the next slide. And then the other park in the development, the West Side Park, it's getting built out a little bit slower than the development's getting built out a little bit slower than anticipated. So we push everything back a year. So we'll be doing the engineering for this park next year, and then in 2025 it will be the build out for it, and that's when we'll be collecting the impact fees. Will be hopefully be collected by then. If you can go to the next slide. So T. Nossick Park, this is the park in the Kettle Park West development. We're in the middle of the master planning process right now. We're at the draft concept stage. We just had the two concepts presented to the Parks and Rec Committee on Tuesday. The park's likely to have a shelter / restroom, playground, possible biking facilities, multi-use pedestrian trails transversing through the park, sledding hill, and nature trails. And this project will be financed using the impact fees collected from the development as well, just based on conversations with Forward during the master planning process this summer. They believe that the development, that phase would be built out in 2025. So that's why that scheduling is there. And then you can go to the next slide, Dave. And this is one of the concepts that was presented Tuesday night, so you can get an idea. This is more centric. And typically what happens is they'll get the two different concepts are phased or fused together, and some of the items fall off, some of them remain based on popularity of community and what the community wants, basically. So the next slide is the second concept. And you can go to the next slide. And then you can go to the next slide as well. So the SDI development, this is to complete a park master plan for the park. Pretty cut and dry. It's just a site master plan for the parkland and within the development, and master plans just arrange the different features of the park and how the park will be programmed in the future. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so the next few slides are for the riverfront project, and you're going to see it just aligns with our corp really well. It hits a lot of different goals and objectives. And then the next slide, these are the different phases of the riverfront development. So you can see phase 2 and phase 3 are what still needs to happen. And if you go to the next slide, so the phase 2, this was actually approved in the budget last year. However, the permitting with the DNR has taken much longer than we anticipated, and we're not going to be able to construct it this coming fall and winter like we had originally planned. So Dave advised me to resubmit it in the 2024 CIP. And right now we're at the process of, we split off the underpass from the water features of the river park. And it really, the reasoning behind that is that the underpass will dictate some of the hydraulics of the actual in-water features. And we need to understand if the underpass will get permitted or not, because the DNR is asking for additional things for the in-water features, and we don't want to have to do the design twice. So we should know what the status is of underpass in probably the next 6 to 8 weeks. Um, we had a meeting with our attorney this past week, and it was pretty favorable for the city, so I expect it to get permitted. They just wanted us to exhaust a couple different options for our alternatives, but our engineers don't think that it's possible for what they're asking. Another factor is, since it's going to be delayed a year, the cost estimates for all the items went up 10% to account for inflation. So you can go to the next slide. And then these are, this is just a high level shot of what we're doing. And then the next slide, Dave. So these are the costs just for the in-water features. The city responsibility is roughly 1.45 million. The Land Water Conservation Fund grant is still tentative based on our permitting. So if it's going to get permitted, they'll become finalized. We're still in good shape that way. And you can go to the next slide, Dave. And then the trails, underpass, and pedestrian area. So this includes the 4th Street underpass and the connecting and extending the river walk, and having pedestrian areas so people can view the river and the paddling and things. So the cost the grant funding is 2.5 roughly million. The stewardship grant has already been accepted by the city. And you can go to the next slide, Dave. And then the mill pond remediation restoration. So the permitting for this actually was approved by the DNR. Once the project, the overall project happens, so we're in good standing there. And then we also accepted the grant funds for the river restoration and remediation part. So it's about $160,000 according to Strand to do that. And then there's some design engineering costs too, because some of the things the DNR has been asking for. So 190,000 in 2024, and that includes the design updates. We have to do a dam failure analysis, electrical design for the underpass. So there's lighting, there's a pump to pump out water in the underpass, and then the construction documents and bidding and construction oversight. And then 2025 would be the final months of the construction, and there's money budgeted for construction oversight for that as well. Next slide. Okay, so phase 3. This is really implementing phase 1 of the Man Park Master Plan. The improvements include removing the roadway parallel to the river, so North Man Park Way, naturalization of the shoreline, river access, parking, restroom, and there's actually a south roadway. So if you go to the next slide. So this colored area, this is the area of the Man Park to be redeveloped. We got to make a slight change to the phasing of the master plan, which is moving up the South Man Park roadway to phase 1 which is originally in phase 2 of the master plan. We had several meetings with the fair, Stoughton Utilities, and the school district, and all three were concerned about the narrowness of the South Man Parkway. So they'd be forced to, since North Man Parkway is going away, transversing and using that south corridor of the park, which is pretty narrow right now. So the way the road alignment is, it softens that curve by or the turn by the pig barn for the fair, but it's the building that is parallel to the current roadway. And it also widens the road by 6 feet. So if you have 2 semis or buses going side by side, trying to get to the bus barn or wastewater plant, it's safe for them, basically. And then the next slide, you can see it. The roadways in there, the master plan, like it's just getting moved up from the second phase to the first phase. And one thing we're not able to do is the trail along the wastewater treatment plant. There's just not enough room to make that happen, but everything else there is included, like the master plan. And then if you go to the next phase, or next slide, Dave.
Hey,
Dan, just hold on.
Dan, I got a
Sure.
question for you, quick, on the, actually on the previous page or the previous slide, on that Mant Park, adding that into the phase one, that Mant Park realignment. Does that get rid of, since that whole broken red line there is, what happens to that little skate park amenity piece that's down there?
The skate park is, it's inside the roadway, so nothing would be happening to the skate park. However, there is a playground adjacent to the Troll Beach parking lot that would have to be removed or relocated.
Okay.
And you can see in if you go to the next slide, Dave, you can in the master plan for the park, behind the Man Center, there's sort of a corridor there with a playground and the skate park.
That gets removed, Dan, or that gets added?
So the skate park can stay where it is for now, and then the playground would need to be removed for the roadway to be put in. However, it could get moved across the road.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And then we were recently awarded $368,600 in a stewardship grant for this project. However, we have had internal discussions, and it may be in the city's best interest to only receive $250,000 of it. And the reasoning behind that is awards in excess of $250,000 need to go to the state joint finance committee to approve the grant award. And then in recent years, Dane County communities have had their grant award reversed at the joint finance, really due to politics. I know Monona had one happen a few years ago, and it seems like everybody is not trying to risk it anymore, and they're just taking the $250,000. So that's what I have budgeted. And I've talked to the mayor and Regina and Bill about this too, and it seems like, and Dave, and it seems like it's, in the city's best interest to take the guaranteed money. There may be, there's also a possibility of receiving an additional $50,000 grant for a federal award through a recreational boating and fishing grant for one of the kayak launches. So that's not in the budget, but I think the deadline is in September or October this year, and it seems like that could be a pretty good option for us to get some more funding for this project. The next project is implementing the racetrack park master plan. And the next slide, Dave, has the phasing for it. So we're working on the first phase of the project. And if you go to the next slide, it also aligns with our corp. It's a lot of the goals and objectives that the corp lays out for the city. So I itemized some of the costs here, so and they're broken down. So there's the parking lots, the pathways, and a new entry sign, and then the south expansion. The south expansion, the city attorney is writing the offer to purchase for the property that you can sort of see it on your screen where it's dashed. This is adjacent to the existing soccer field on the south end of the park. So it's 2 acres, and it's going to allow us to have the 2 soccer fields on the south end of the park, and also extend the parking lot there. And then the ball diamond upgrade. So the next few slides, I'll get into more details of things. But the first, you can go to the next slide. The first thing is this: you can see the soccer and baseball. So Racetrack Park is the top city asset as far as basically both of those sports go, as far as having program activities and things. Our supply for soccer fields is moderate, while baseball and softball are good, but this is our key park for sport. And this was put together by Hunden, working on the feasibility study for the Stone Trailers Park. The next slide. So this is from the ADA transition plan as well. So this is a screenshot. We have GIS mapping of all the ADA deficiencies in the park system. And there's 57 in Racetrack Park, and this project would address 49 of them. So the ones that aren't getting addressed are things like not having an accessible pathway to the playground, because we're not working on the playground part of the phase of this project or the master plan. And those will all get addressed in the future phases, but this is really going to, address a lot of them. In the next slide. So if you go around to different communities in the area and look at their sports parks and compare ours, ours it's just not stacking up anymore. So that's why they have the ball diamond upgrades in there. And then the next slide. So you can see this is a condition of the parking lot. If that's still there, you'd probably give it a Pacer rating of 1 if it was a road. And then the second picture is a slope leading to a restroom at the park. So 13.95 is quite the slope for anything that you're trying to make ADA compliant. And the minimum, the maximum slope you want is typically 5%, or you can go up to 8% with handrails, but typically 5%. So you can see we're way over on the slope for something to try to make it accessible. So the project, entail, all the asphalt and making sure that it's all compliant with slopes and things like that. Any questions?
Do I have any questions at this time? Dan, on the river park, is there any, because we're pushing it off, part of it off a year, is there any of the engineering that can happen this year that we can stack in?
I don't think so. I think we're working at as fast of a pace as we can on that. So it's, we'll do the engineering that the DNR wants or requests, and then they'll have a meeting with them to review it. And it seems like the scheduling the meeting and there's that time between the meetings, that's what slows everything down. It's just going through the different hoops with the DNR and on our end, as far as speeding things up, I just think we're getting things done as fast as we can.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I think we're on to Cindy.
Conversation. For the last, we're actually moving into our national accreditation review. I think some of you have already heard us talk about that. Lisa certainly has. For the last, so it's every 5 years we do our national accreditation, also our state accreditation. The last 2 accreditation periods, when we talk about things that are needed, parking has been an issue. We've talked about it for many years. We talked about it initially when we moved into the building in '94. With the expansion to our annex, it has brought up some more conversation about parking that is needed. When we talk about ADA, when we talk about people having access to the building, we need more parking. So Dave and Tim and I have had some conversations about what those beginning conversations start to look like. What are our possibilities? So we are talking about parking today. So we have more people using the space. So when we talk about how many people use the senior center during the day, it's, we're averaging, at least on our average days, it's 100 people. When you talk about big days like today, it was probably 150. Now it's not 150 people aren't showing up at 8 o'clock and leaving at 4:30. But throughout the day, we have a lot of needs for multiple groups of people that are looking to park at the senior center. The spots that we have available are not sufficient right now. We have some parking that you all agreed to have some parking be just senior center parking just recently, and we're very thankful for that during the day. So from some of the parking that you're looking at right here, this is determined to be senior center parking only from 8 to 4:30. We live in a neighborhood, and a lot of times our neighbors are parking in our parking lot, which is fine after 4:30. I don't care. But if we can keep them out of there from 8 to 4:30, that'd be great. So we're looking at, we have those parking spaces. I think the next slide shows one of those parking spaces that are parking areas that are the slant there, that's to the north of the building. And then I think the next slide shows some of the underground parking. I think there's only 5 slots there. But the parking that is available underneath, which I think is the next slide, right? There are 14 slots there. I would say not everybody is comfortable when that area is completely full. It is real tight, and that actually shows really nice lighting. I really don't think there's that much lighting down there. So it is a little tight. We have some seniors that are not comfortable in parking there. Between the tight spaces that are there, they're not comfortable with parking there. We have some that are, but some that are not. Next slide, yeah. Then the next slide just talks about how much space we have, and I'm not going to read all that to you. But we are very excited about our annex space. We've already had, it's only been available for a month or so, and we've already seen an increase in usage, some bigger groups that are able to use it. So we're seeing people that we've not seen before use the senior center, which is very exciting. So we are expanding. I did, for those of you who have not seen our newsletter recently, this is August. So it just gives you kind of an idea of the events. Gives you an idea of what kind of things and timing of things that are happening. Most of the events are at least 10 people, some much more. For instance, for dinner today, we had 50 people for lunch. So it really depends on what's happening per day. And these are only going to increase. When we have next Tuesday, we have 2 things happening in the annex space, so that, again, more people using the center. So we need to look at expanding the parking options. Obviously, we are landlocked. We don't have any empty lots next to us. So we're going to need to get creative of what possibilities there are.
And just a couple things I'll add quick. I had a note on there when I gave Dave the PowerPoint that we're still waiting to hear back from the fire department, and they also say that we need a minimum of 45 parking spots based on the capacity, so it's the same as the square footage of the building. We have 36, and then the other issue is mobility issues as well, is another consideration.
Yep. The other thing that isn't addressed is that we have 9 staff members. So we try to have staff park as far away from the building as they can, but we have our case managers that are in and out of the building a lot during the day. So in not having staff being able to park, anywhere close to the building, we try not to. So, and we have some Main Street parking, but that is a 2-hour parking limit, so it kind of limits the amount of time that people would be spending at the senior center. And it's a $20 parking ticket. So, let you know if you didn't know. So, yeah, Lisa.
So I had wondered last week if we'd had any conversations ever with Livs Risa about utilizing that parking space that's mostly empty, mostly all the time.
We have, and that is not a possibility.
Cindy, are these all like people coming from their individual homes, or are they coming from other senior assisted living places? Or
Mostly individual homes.
Okay,
We
'cause
do have some that visit. We have people who take the taxi to our building. We have people who use some transportation that's sponsored by the county. So we have some people who are not, parking. So not every, person who's walking in the door is driving a car there. But we do have people who come from surrounding areas as well. So using the city cab is not possible if you're coming from Oregon or McFarland or those kind of things. And we have folks who participate that are from outside the area.
No, I was just wondering if they were like all coming from the east side, if there is a ability to have like a shuttle bus or something like that, but.
Well, for those of you who've been in town for a long time, the senior center used to have a van, and we used to have a driver. That was taken out of our budget many, many years ago to cut down on staffing. But so that used to be something that we had. It certainly we could look at it. It then starts into vehicle cost, which you've seen in the last couple hours. So it is something that could be looked at, but I think part of in talking about people coming from outside the area and in our 5 townships that are surrounding us, they're driving in as well.
And so you're not specifically looking for funds yet. You would like us to be thinking about options and.
Well, part of what Dave and I have been talking about is that the senior does have an endowment. So I would like to use some of that money. I don't want to talk about some of the options because we really have not looked at, if I'm talking about a piece of property, I don't know how many parking spaces will fit there. So to say I'm going to buy that, I can't say that yet. I would like to move on this sooner than later. So I don't know how, Dave and I have been kind of talking about how to put that place marker in there and what that money would be. I'm not saying it has to be next year, but it needs to be soon because we are strapped for parking.
So are you going to initiate the kind of figuring it out, or are you planning on hiring somebody to figure it out?
Yeah, I'm going to work with Rodney and see what he recommends. But I would use, Dave and I again have talked about using some of the endowment monies to see what is possible.
What is possible, not solving it. So you're using endowment money to see what is possible, not necessarily if you have to buy some land.
Depending on what we're talking about, we would possibly use some of the endowment monies to solve the problem as well. We'll not have enough to do everything.
Okay.
But I think, this is exactly why we have an endowment. For those of you who don't know, the endowment monies came from two rather large gifts many, many years ago to put aside for future needs of the expansion of the senior center. So this fits that bill perfectly.
So are you also looking to like remark that your underground
All of that,
things,
yep,
new
all of-
lighting?
Yep, all of
use-
that would be in the, looking at the possibilities of parking, so updating and lighting would be
Okay.
one, yep.
Any other questions?
And I do not want to see that neighborhood degraded any worse than what it is. That is just my own comment on where I'm standing.
I understand.
And I'm telling you now ahead of time so that
Yep.
if you are designing on a residential on that block, hope you're not.
Well, I can guarantee you it's probably an option, that when we have someone look at the space of where we can put some parking, I can't say of my feelings about it, but I can't believe that that won't be one of them, just because there's only so much, can't put it in the water.
And I can guarantee that I will be opposed.
We'll have a ferry.
A
Right.
floating
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah, and I tell you, if I could guarantee about 20 spots, I'll do it.
So that's what you're looking for, is about 20 new
No,
spots?
and actually, the idea of, and I think the accreditation process is going to help us immensely, because we're going to be talking about new numbers, how many people are coming in, the, programming that we have currently, and what we're going to be doing in the next 6 months. So it will help us with really knowing to plan for what we're going to need.
Would it also help, the parking spaces just around the senior center if we, like when we designated spots, this is for the senior center, they can be from 8 to 4:30,
Mhm.
but it has to be designated for the senior center, that would help? Yep, on Main Street, or,
Again, open to all.
okay.
Because, let's be honest, Mike's right. I mean, there's only so many spaces that we can make. So if there are some existing that aren't designated for senior center only, and we can do that, that's going to help us. I can't say that I'm crazy about trying to get older adults across Main Street with no crosswalk right there. For them to walk down to Page to cross, you're just going to have people trying to dart across Main Street. Doesn't thrill me, but we can talk about it. Phil?
Is there street parking on Washington Street?
There is. It's limited. It's a pretty good hill. So for some of our folks, it's a difficult park. That's where some of our staff park. So, yep, but there is some.
So we could potentially reserve that as senior center parking until 4:30, something like that.
Good.
Another,
Okay, but yeah, that's a hill.
But, and that also, for that neighborhood, is a lot of neighbors parking there,
Yeah, yeah.
because not a lot of them have
senior,
driveways and
it's a lot of-
those kind of things.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
And thank you for all your work and your ribbon cutting of your annex.
Yeah, we had a nice open house. We were real excited about it. Really fun. Okay.
All right. Have a good evening, Cindy. Dave, item number 9, is it just us looking at the spreadsheets, or do we have?
Yeah, that's just the 2 spreadsheets, the most recent versions. I can certainly pull them up on the screen if you want to continue talking them tonight, or do you want to wait till the next meeting on Wednesday?
I think the look on people's faces where their heads are like nodding and drool is coming off. I think it's time that we call it a night. Thank you. Because I don't think there'd be any good discussion. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second by Tom. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I don't think there's any nays. Let's close this meeting. Thank you, Dave, for all your work and putting this all together. Thank you all, leadership team. You guys did great.